BT's Body in Balance is sponsored by Canada Diagnostic Centres, offering MRI, X-ray and ultrasound services in Calgary and Okotoks.
8:20. Leah Sarich, our health specialist, joining us now. Could be the bills coming in this time of year from all that holiday spending. Could be so little light, a lot of darkness right now, but feeling depressed this time of year is quite common. But those feelings could also be a more serious mental illness called seasonal affective disorder.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about today. So seasonal affective disorder is actually a subset of major depression, or clinical depression as many of us know it as. So it's characterized by a pattern of depressive symptoms that usually occurs seasonally. So they start in the winter and they resolve in the spring. And while many symptoms of SAD, seasonal affective disorder, have the same symptoms as major depression, there's a few of them that are actually just a little different. So I spoke to a psychiatrist about this, Dr. Scott Patton, and he outlines what the symptoms of SAD are.
Typically, it would be depressed mood, loss of interest in activities that one would normally enjoy, increased appetite, probably often a craving for high-calorie foods like carbohydrates, increased sleep, so it might be just spending more hours sleeping, difficulty getting out of bed in the morning. But also you often see other typical depressive symptoms, problems with memory, concentration, perhaps diminished self-esteem or negative style of thinking. You could even have thoughts about suicide.
So pretty serious symptoms.
Yeah, no
for
kidding.
Sure. So the atypical symptoms of SAD include the prominent fatigue and an increase in appetite. So usually if you have normal depression, you'd have a decrease in appetite.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes. Or an increase in sleep. So in major depression, people usually have trouble sleeping. So those are the big differences there. And also with SAD, there's that seasonal pattern, as I spoke of, the winter, spring. But to get a clinical diagnosis of SAD, this pattern, the winter onset and the resolution in the spring, that needs to happen for a few years so that you can actually say, oh, this is exactly what's happening. And then the treatment for SAD also includes an unusual treatment option not normally used for clinical depression, and that's called light therapy.
It can sometimes be treated with phototherapy, light therapy. It doesn't always work, but this is one of the unique aspects of it. So this is a bright light, typically of a limited spectrum, so it doesn't have very much ultraviolet light. This is for safety reasons, so it wouldn't cause a sunburn or increase the risk of skin cancer. And typically a person sits close to these lights with their eyes open, not looking at the light, for about 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes in the morning. And for some people this is an effective treatment for SAD.
So there you go, light therapy, not too bad. Now, the one thing that's really neat about light therapy is there's new research that's suggesting that that light therapy may actually be beneficial for other kinds of depression as well.
Oh,
but
wow.
This is just in the early stages, but that's what they're looking at, so that's interesting. But you would think, oh, just looking at a light, this is fairly innocuous, no big deal, but it actually isn't that innocuous. In fact, Dr. Patton told me that for those people who have bipolar disorder, if they are looking at that light, it can actually trigger a manic episode.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so when they go into that manic side of their illness. So it actually is pretty serious. It's a very important treatment, and so the thinking is that you really need to talk to a mental health professional about what the treatment options are for you. And then, of course, just like other depressions, the treatments also include psychotherapy and antidepressant medications. And Dr. Patton was telling me that if you actually put some of them together, so for example, if you do psychotherapy and the light therapy with SAD, you actually may see an additive benefit. So you actually might do better than those who only did one kind of treatment or another.
Okay, if you end up taking the medications,
yes,
it is a seasonal affective disorder.
Right.
Come spring, like so April, May, June, can you go off the meds then? Or?
I asked Dr. Patton that very question because I thought, would that make sense?
Sure.
And he said, if you know for sure that you have SAD and not another kind of depression, then it would make sense to go off your medications in the spring. But for people who don't know for sure, this is not a good idea. So for example, if you think you just have clinical depression, major depression, not a good idea, because coming off and on the medications for the antidepressant medications, that can be really disruptive to your life because it usually takes a couple of weeks for them to kick in and then a couple of months for them to reach their absolute best effectiveness.
Oh, wow.
So then when you go off them, though it's very typical for people to go, oh, I feel much better, I'm just going to go off my meds now, and then they relapse. And then they have to get back on the medications, and then it takes a little bit while to kick in. So, you know, this is a pattern that you don't really want to do. So that's not necessarily a good idea. But again, it's very common right now to have these sort of depressive symptoms, but often they're just sort of depressive symptoms and not seasonal affective disorder. But either way, it's really important to talk to someone about this if you're not feeling so happy these days. Start with your family doctor, or you can always call Access Mental Health at 943-1500, and of course, this is all on my blog.
There you go, breakfasttelevision.ca. That's where you can find it. It's 8:24 minus